What animal did evolution duck over the hardest? The octopus. Intelligent animal that dies after mating. Rips off its own genitals and throws them at the female. I mean, seriously. National Geographic had an article on a female octopus that lived for 4.5 years after laying eggs. Apparently, females of her species usually die after laying eggs, but the longer they stay alive, the better they can protect the eggs, allowing the octopus babies inside to get a better start when they finally hatch. She was being observed very regularly, and even though the observers offered her food, she pushed it away or ignored it. Even when food happened to scuttle by, she ignored it. Researchers were sure it was the same octopus because it had the same markings/scars each time they observed her. She possibly spent 4.5 years without eating. And when you look at the pics, you can see her getting grayer and grayer and her skin getting weirder and weirder from lack of nutrition. Dodo bird. Evolved on an island where there were no predators of it anyway, so it lost the ability to fly. It wasn't an advantage. Boom. Along came sailors. Dodos are tasty. Dodos no fly to evade humans. No more dodos. Not only that, when a dodo gave a distress call, other dodos would run towards it to help. Sailors learned this and took advantage of this. Imagine that, just being a dodo coming to help and being eaten for it. Adult moths of the Saturniidae family, lunar moths, etc., have no mouths or digestive tracts and die of starvation. Their sole purpose after pupating is to reproduce and die. I have no mouth and I must breed. Imagine if they were sapient. They'd be the only species to develop genetic engineering before the wheel. Sloths. They live in trees, but they need to climb down to take a shit, and this is when they get eaten by predators because they are super slow. They can't just poop from the trees. Imagine if every time you went to the bathroom, you had to be worried that someone was going to enter and see you and kill you, and you'd have to try to fight them off while sitting on the toilet with your pants around your ankles like a damn fool. The chicken. Imagine being a gigantic terrifying dinosaur, then millions and millions of years pass, and you're this small fat delicious bird. Edit. Guys, the question said evolution. Selective breeding is a type of evolution by human intervention. I would imagine though, that if we were to somehow Jurassic Park ourselves a 20-foot tall chicken, which would be awesome by the way, its flesh wouldn't be nearly as good. One chicken however would be able to feed 3 families for a year. The Komodo dragon. They spent untold amounts of time slowly evolving to be the perfect predators for this kind of mini elephant native to Indonesia. Then the elephant went extinct. They still do pretty well. Koalas. Okay, they're cute. They're also ducking stupid. They have tiny little brains, one of the smallest brain to body ratios, that don't recognize anything as food except for eucalyptus leaves on the branch. They can see you pull the leaf off the tree and try to feed it to them, and they don't recognize it as food anymore, so they won't eat. They are not adaptable. It would take only one environmental shock to leave them sitting there with nothing they realize they can eat. It's an evolutionary dead end. Also they all have chlamydia. Apparently I was irresponsibly forwarding a Reddit myth, and they are not actually quite so stupid they don't recognize eucalyptus leaves in your hand as food. They are still very stupid though. Their brains are smooth like a baby's bottom. Not to mention their sole food source is literally a drug to them. Which is why they are cranky in the morning. They've gone all night without taking their eucalyptus. This is why the Australian sass are referred to as drop bears. You piss off a koala and it'll fall on you and rip you a new one. Red pandas have the digestive system of a carnivore, but eat primarily bamboo. Because they have a carnivorous digestive system, they can only manage to absorb 1/4 of the nutrients in a bamboo leaf. Because they can only absorb 1/4 of the nutrients in a bamboo leaf, they have a super slow metabolism to compensate. Because they have a super slow metabolism, they don't produce a lot of body heat. They live in the ducking Himalayas, and they don't produce a lot of body heat. WTF red pandas, why are you alive? Also their mating season lasts 24 hours a year. Also their mating season lasts 24 hours a year. I just imagine all of these red pandas just waiting around. Is it today? Nope. Okay. Spotted hyenas. The females all have enlarged pseudo-penises, which are exactly what you're imagining. They're useful in the sense that it means it's really hard for the males to have sex with a female hyena who isn't receptive to it. But there's some drawbacks. Also exactly where you'd imagine. Childbirth. They give birth to live young who have to come through that long and not too stretchy pseudopenis. It is not uncommon for the pseudopenis to split during childbirth and for the mother to then bleed out. Now I understand why there was only one female hyena in the Lion King. Hawaii has a flightless housefly. Seems pretty pitiful. Get the spray. We have house walks again. Giant isopod. They live 6,000 feet down on the seabed, where there is no light. In the pitch black and cold, they survive by feasting on dead and decaying fish and other marine animals. Sounds super lame. Well, not from the isopod's perspective. They're really living it up down there. Whales and dolphins. Ah yes, we've finally gotten onto land. It took millions of years, but we are finally here. Okay, time to go back in the water. Lungs are way better at getting oxygen out of air than gills are out of water. So besides the tiny bit about having to resurface now and then, it's mostly a huge advantage. Weren't bugs like really big in the prehistoric age because of the higher oxygen levels? Now most of them are really tiny, so that probably has to suck for them a little bit. The kiwi bird. It's a large round body with a massive beak. Can't fly, can't climb, can't defend itself from anything. According to ancient Maori tales, tastes amazing. We have lots of weird birds in NZ. The kakapo can't fly, but it doesn't know it can't fly. It will often jump out of a tree, flap its wings, and promptly plummet to the ground. Pandas are swole. Their upper bodies are like 3 times the size of their lower. It's my dream to go panda mode. You know how most animals either get a lot of useless babies in the hopes that some survive, or few babies that can pretty much handle themselves from the get-go? The panda decided to say duck the system and get very few, very useless babies. Those goats that pass out if they get too excited. If I remember correctly, they don't actually pass out, but their legs tense up and they fall over. You ever seen an echidna? Knuckles got 4 dicks. Humans gave us just enough intelligence to have the power to ruin our planet, but not enough to decide not to. To me, mankind's greatest evolutionary gift is our ability to work together. It really is a shame to see petty differences push us backwards. None. Any species that is around today is a result of them being a ducking evolutionary badass and adapting better than their competitors. The only animals that were screwed died off during the mass extinction events. That shit wasn't fair, yo. You sounded like Dwight screwed through 97% of that comment. I think the rabbit might be up there. I mean, rabbits are awesome in a bunch of ways, but they are secotropes. Basically the rabbit used to be a predator, but then they slowly turned into a vegetation prey species. Their stomachs didn't quite have the right layout to process grass and hay, so they partially digest this stuff, and then poop it out directly into their mouths, chew it up again, and then swallow it for a second digestion. So, that seems kind of mean. When people bring up intelligent design I always ask about secotropes. Blue tongue skink. Stubby little legs, can't move its big fat long body easily at all. Its main self-defense? Trying to trick other animals with its blue tongue that it's venomous/poisonous. It is not. It is just a hobbling fat slice of why god, why me? They are pretty cute though, and curious. Mine just watched out the window while we went to a Meet the Reptiles day at a local park. Was pissed off until I let him out of the carrier and held him up where he could see out the windows. I haven't seen the Irish elk mentioned yet. They evolved enormous horns through sexual selection and they went extinct because, according to one common theory, the horns made them ineffective at life overall. The males had to have constant neck pain. Perpetuation of unrealistic sexual standards is real. Irish elk evolved to have huge antlers/horns. Then humans came along and hunted them on the plains. What caused them to be killed off so easily was that they couldn't pass through trees without getting stuck. And then early humans would walk them to death. Really, no one has said primates other than human. I mean, obviously for some gorillas, it hasn't worked out very well. And for primates in general, humans have destroyed their habitats and put them in zoos and funny clothes. Evolution seriously screwed them over. Lots of people said human here, but really, I mean, logistically, we can destroy the entire earth with a nuclear winter, including ourselves. No other species can do that. Plus or minus, that puts us on top of the food chain. I'm not bringing morals into who lost evolution. Just practically. Clearly the fact that some primates evolved to literally become the apex of the animal kingdom and develop the capability to control and destroy all other living things while the other primates did not makes them clear losers. Didn't work out well for one gorilla in particular. As a biologist who studies the evolution of infectious disease, in one way I would say humans. No other organism gets riddled with the virulent infections like we do. We may have one of the most sophisticated immune systems, but it's not nearly enough. The pathogens can evolve way quicker than we can, and b. it also turns on us and causes so many diseases and general maladies. A lot of what screwed us over in this way was actually cultural evolution, because it's a lot faster than biological evolution for humans. We were living in densely populated areas long before our immune system was capable of handling the epidemiology of that situation alone. And in some ways, it only gets worse. Now people can get on airplanes and spread these infections all over the world, and even vectors can take a ride. People who live near airports in Europe and America actually get malaria relatively often, because some mosquito hitched a ride on Air Nigeria, or whatever. So we get all this technology with our big brains and our complex societies, but we get way sicker than any other organisms. Ironically, the only other organisms that have problems even close to ours are mostly ones inbred by humans. So our lovely cultural evolution can share the bounty of infectious disease susceptibility to potentially any group. Well, that's why there's 7 billion of us, 1 billion dies, but the other 6 billion are just waiting there to see if they're immune. You live if you don't have a weak ass immune system. Horses. Gotta throw up. Too bad. You're dead now. Huh. I never heard of this. Why do they die from throwing up? The horse's digestive system is really fragile. It's designed such that they can't vomit. Also, if there is any solid or gas blockage, it causes pain to where they kick their belly or roll. While they are rolling, it can get tangled. Horses are hard to do surgery on, and quite a few have malignant hypothermia and die in surgery. So in short, stomach aches are called colic. Colic is the #1 killer of horses. Also, the organ that breaks down the food efficiently is located after the intestine and right before the colon. Take that efficiency. Humans, specifically girls. Most other mammals at the end of their monthly cycle absorb the egg back into their system without experiencing any discharges from their body. Somehow we never evolved this. We'd once that human females evolved to be always pregnant or malnourished, so no need to develop a discomfort-free period. They were normally starving, so no periods. If they were not starving, their body was in baby mode. No in between. Tasmanian devils have been devastated by an aggressive transmissible cancer that so disfigures their faces that they eventually starve to death or suffocate. They bite each other in the face so often that over 80% of wild Tasmanian devils had the disease in 2010. Thanks evolution. I always felt sorry for the mala mala. They look like a gigantic fish heads as opposed to whole fish. They eternally have that stupid look on their face, and orcas use them as frisbees. The thought of a derpy mala swimming around and then being flung around like a frisbee by passing orca while keeping its doofy look made me giggle. Flightless birds. Hey, let's make an animal that's basically a nice fat fluffy ball of meat, give it tiny stick legs, and then remove the only ability it has to escape stealthy ground predators. There's a reason so many of them became extinct, many from when one or two cats would be introduced to an island when ships would land there. Any animal humans find delicious and can cost effectively farm. Cows, pigs, chickens. 90+% of them are being raised to be our dinner. But most of the animals that we eat today have been cultivated from another wild version, if what we eat. It's not like hundreds of years ago there were herds of Holsteins roaming the prairie. So those ones aren't really ducked by natural selective evolution, but by artificial selective evolution. Basically, they wouldn't be alive or exist if we didn't make them tasty. River dolphins. Just as smart as regular dolphins, but hit every branch on the way down the evolutionary tree. Especially the ugly stick. Repeatedly.